Okay, let's unpack this. I want you to just imagine your last trip through an airport.
Oh, the stress, just immediately.
Right. It's always a stressful blur.
Yeah.
You've got the endless security lines, the sterile echoing corridors, the aggressive fluorescent lighting, and those utilitarian seating areas that somehow feel like they're actively trying to make you uncomfortable.
Yeah, they're definitely not designed for actual resting.
Exactly. So what if I told you that that entire experience, that fundamental approach to travel, is completely wrong?
It's a bold claim, but looking at the material today, it's hard to argue against it.
It really is. Welcome to today's deep dive. We have a massive mission today. We are unpacking a genuinely radical new vision that aims to transform the very nature of global travel. We're exploring the concept of aviation not just as a logistics industry moving metal tubes through the sky, but as a cultural infrastructure.
Which is just a fascinating pivot.
It's huge. Yeah. And we've got a brilliant stack of materials for this deep dive. We're pulling from the foundational landing page for what's called the Art Aviation Network. This is authored by EURANA, the European Art Networks.
Hmm.
And alongside that, we're digging into two incredibly detailed newsletters. We have Constellation number 46, which is called Gateways to Creativity, and Constellation number 48, Runway to Renaissance. Both of these are spearheaded by Alexandros Mumoglu.
Right. And to really set the baseline here, we are looking at a complete structural redefinition of transit. We've reached a point where functional excellence, taking off, landing safely, moving luggage, is no longer enough. The core argument here is that emotional cultural resonance has to take center stage.
Okay, so let's get right into Section 1, the aviation doctrine itself, because the sources
Thanks.
are actually pretty harsh about the failure of the current model.
Very harsh, but fairly so.
Yeah, I mean, they point out that modern aviation is this marvel of engineering, right? It's
Yeah.
a powerful, symbolic system. But conceptually, it is incredibly narrow. It moves millions of bodies every single day, but it almost never moves anyone emotionally.
No, in fact, it usually does the opposite. It drains you emotionally. And what's fascinating here is the psychological landscape they map out. The text identifies this core failure.
Mm.
We currently treat airports and airplanes as neutral technical corridors. They're just pipes we push people through.
Just a logistics problem to be solved.
Exactly. But psychologically speaking, a terminal isn't just a shed for airplanes. It is a threshold. It is the absolute boundary between where you were and where you're going.
A liminal space.
Yes, and a lounge. It's not just a waiting room or a holding pen. It's a prelude to the journey. The cabin itself is this temporary, highly controlled micro-world suspended between earth and sky. Treating those deeply sensitive spaces like neutral corridors is a massive missed opportunity.
Which brings us to this radical shift. Treating aviation as cultural infrastructure. And for you listening, I want you to really consider this. Think about how your mood or your perception of an entirely new country is shaped by those first and last things you see.
It sets the entire tone.
Right. If you land in a beautiful historic city, but your first 2 hours are spent navigating a bleak, gray, concrete box with harsh lighting and stressed-out staff, your psychological entry point to that culture is already compromised.
You're starting at a deficit. And what's fascinating here is that Euron's solution isn't just about mere embellishment. They are very explicit about this.
It's not just hanging a painting near the bathrooms.
Exactly. It's not, bolting a kinetic sculpture to the ceiling of a food court and calling it a day. This is a structural shift.
Yeah.
They are talking about turning transit spaces into authored experiences. It's about using these spaces as engines of soft power.
Soft power. I love that term in this context.
Yeah.
Because a country's airport is its global billboard.
It's the ultimate handshake. And right now, most countries have a really weak handshake.
Okay, so let's move into Section 2 and look at how this actually transforms the ground experience. This is Constellation 46, Gateways to Creativity. And let's start with the big ones, the mega airports. How do we fix these sprawling, chaotic hubs?
The blueprint introduces this concept of art terminals. And it's comprehensive. We're talking about integrating curated shows, interactive installations specifically designed to combat travel fatigue, and even live cultural performances.
Now wait, I can hear the airline executives groaning already because airports are high security, high flow zones. How do you put a live performance in a terminal without causing a massive passenger traffic jam?
Well, you have to rethink the spatial zoning, which the text outlines beautifully. You don't put the string quartet in the middle of the main walkway. You create these architectural eddies, secondary plazas that naturally pull people out of the main flow without disrupting the wayfinding.
You step out of the river of people into a quiet pool.
Exactly. And the acoustics change, the lighting drops, you give people a sanctuary.
And it's not just traditional art either. The details in the text are wild. They talk about fashion pop-ups
Yeah.
that are basically museum-quality textile exhibits.
Mm-hmm.
They have these exclusive artistic lounges that double as serene galleries. But the thing that really caught my eye was the digital and VR integration.
Oh, the virtual reality aspects are incredible.
Yeah, explain that. Because they envision a scenario where travelers can put on a headset and virtually explore local museums before they even leave the terminal.
Right, so imagine you're sitting on a layover, you're exhausted. Instead of staring at your phone, you slip into one of these secure, acoustically treated VR pods in the lounge, and you can virtually walk through a live, curated exhibition happening right then in the city you're about to fly to.
That is, that's just a brilliant use of dead time.
It totally changes the value proposition of a layover. You are actively engaging with the culture of your destination hours before you land.
Okay, but what about small airports? Because obviously, a tiny regional airport doesn't have the budget or the square footage for VR immersion pods and mega installations.
And that's where the boutique experience comes in. The strategy completely contrasts with the mega hubs. For small airports, there are no massive installations. Instead, they propose what they call art corners.
Our corners.
Yeah, these are intimate mini galleries, themed lounges that deeply reflect the specific local identity. So instead of generic corporate art, it's about fierce geographical anchoring.
They want you to know exactly where you are in the world.
Exactly. And they emphasize community integration. So the airport collaborates directly with local art schools and regional craft guilds. The airport becomes a patron of its own local community.
Which ties everything together.
Yeah.
And speaking of tying things together, the blueprint introduces this global digital platform called the Constellation.
Right, the Constellation Network. This is the digital glue.
How does that work for the average passenger?
So it's an app, essentially, that connects your travel itinerary with the cultural programming across all the airports you'll be visiting. You book a flight, and it tells you, hey, during your layover in Frankfurt, there's a new kinetic sculpture exhibit opening in Terminal B. Do you want to reserve a viewing slot?
It curates your transit.
Precisely. And on the back end, it's an online community for the artists and curators to collaborate on these traveling airport exhibitions.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
Because this all sounds beautiful. It sounds like a utopia. But airports are businesses. They want to sell duty-free perfume and overpriced sandwiches. Why would an airport authority give up prime retail real estate for an art corner?
Because of dwell time. The economic activation here is brilliant, and they lay this out in the text of the specific licensing program.
Walk me through the economics of that.
Well, think about a stressed passenger. A stressed passenger rushes through security, finds their gate, sits down, clutches their bag, and doesn't move. They do not spend money.
True. If I think I'm going to miss my flight, I'm not stopping for a glass of wine.
Exactly. But if the environment is engineered to lower cortisol with beautiful art, good acoustics, calming architecture, the passenger relaxes. And a relaxed passenger wanders. They explore.
And then they buy things.
Their dwell time skyrockets. So by boosting the passenger experience with art, you inadvertently increase revenue in the retail zones. Plus, these high-end cultural hubs attract massive brand sponsorships. Luxury brands will pay a premium to underwrite a beautiful gallery space in an airport with millions of high-net-worth travelers walking past it.
So the art essentially pays for itself by upgrading the entire commercial ecosystem of the terminal.
Exactly. It's highly pragmatic.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. But here is where it gets really interesting. Section 3. We are moving off the ground and transitioning into the sky. This is Constellation 48, runway to Renaissance.
This is the hardest part of the vision to pull off.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because airplanes are cramped, weight is heavily restricted, and airlines are currently trying to figure out how to make seats thinner just to fit more people in. How do you create an immersive art experience inside a pressurized metal tube?
You turn the airplane into a flying canvas. That's the specific phrasing they use. You rely heavily on digital integration and smart tech.
So no heavy marble statues in first class.
Unlikely to pass safety regulations, yeah. So they focus on immersive in-flight art using the screens already there. You have touch screens, potentially lightweight VR setups or premium cabins, and highly curated soundscapes. You could be listening to an artist interview while viewing high-res scans of their work on your seatback screen.
But it goes beyond just the screens, right? The text talks about a fusion of luxury, artistry, and smart tech that physically alters the cabin.
Yes, they dive into bespoke upholstery, artistic lighting design, and designer amenity kits. But the absolute game changer they mention is smart materials.
The smart glass. This blew my mind. Explain how this works.
Right, so imagine the cabin dividers. Usually they're just blank beige plastic bulkheads, right?
Yeah, totally dead space.
With smart glass, those dividers and even the window panels become dynamic digital artworks, and they change based on the phase of the flight.
That is so cool. Give me an example of how that looks during a flight.
So during boarding, when people are anxious and bumping into each other, the bulkheads might display warm, calming, abstract colors, a simulated sunset. Then, as the cabin dims for sleep, the art shifts into slow-moving, deep indigo patterns to induce rest. And when it's time to wake up, the walls literally bloom with a simulated sunrise synced to the destination time zone.
You are using the architecture of the airplane to regulate the passenger's nervous systems.
Exactly, it's deeply functional art.
And since the airplane is moving, the text introduces this concept of exhibitions in motion.
Itinerant exhibitions.
Yeah, the example they gave was so vivid. Imagine you're flying to Italy. Instead of a generic in-flight movie, the entire digital canvas of the plane is previewing selected works from the Venice Biennale.
Right from your seat.
The art changes based on the actual flight route.
You arrive culturally briefed.
Mm.
And the holistic design is so obsessive, it even extends down to the uniforms.
I saw that.
Yeah, the aesthetic governance mandates that the flight crew uniforms are designed by celebrated fashion designers to match the cabin's specific cultural theme. There is no break in the illusion.
But they also ground this in some very practical realities, don't they? It's not just high-altitude elitism.
No, the text highlights a strict commitment to sustainability. They emphasize eco-friendly materials for all these cabin upgrades. And, importantly, there's a mandate to buy directly from local artists at the destination cities to support those local communities.
So it's a closed economic loop.
Huh.
The aviation network enriches the destination it serves.
Precisely.
Okay, let's take a breath here. Because we've covered the terminals, the lounges, the smart glass cabins, it's a massive, complex vision. Which brings us to section 4, the engine of meaning. How do they actually execute and govern this? If every airport just bought whatever art they liked, it would be a chaotic mess.
It would just be subjective noise. And subjectivity is the enemy of a unified global network. So Uran introduces a very specific methodology. It's called the 400 artwork method.
Yes. Developed through constellations 74 and 75. Break this down for us. What is the 400 artwork method?
Think of it as a symbolic engine. It's a curated matrix of 400 classical foundational artworks from human history.
We aren't just making copies of these paintings for the airports, right?
Oh, definitely not. It's not about literal replication. It's about cultural engineering. An architect or a designer uses this matrix as source code. If they are designing a new lounge, they select an artwork from the 400, say, a specific Renaissance sculpture.
Okay.
They abstract the essence of that piece. They take its geometric proportions, its color palette, its emotional resonance, and they map those qualities onto the architecture, the acoustics, and the lighting of the space.
Wow. So the space itself is geometrically and psychologically rooted in classical art, even if there isn't a literal statue in the room.
Exactly. It ensures the environment has true intentional identity rather than just being random decoration.
But rolling out custom architectural designs based on Renaissance ratios across a global network sounds painfully slow. How do they scale this?
They developed prototypes. These are modular, scalable rollout plans. The text specifically outlines two primary aesthetic registers: the beige edition and the black-white edition.
Okay, so what is a beige edition space like?
Beige edition prototypes are highly organic, calming, and grounding. Think natural woods, terracotta, soft lighting. You'd deploy this in a transfer lounge where people need to decompress.
And the black-white edition.
That's high contrast, kinetic, very modern, sharp lines, digital integrations. It's energizing. You drop a black-white prototype into a high-speed business terminal where you want people to feel momentum.
And because they're prototypes, an airport can just license the blueprint and implement it quickly without redesigning the whole building from scratch.
Exactly. It's a cultural blueprint.
And the text points out that at the heart of all these spaces is something called the Art Center.
The art center is crucial. It is the nucleus.
But it's not a museum.
No, it's not a simple gallery where you just go stare at things. It is the cultural engine of the space. It's the center of gravity. Everything else visually and architecturally orbits the art center.
But they also scale this concept all the way down. I love reading about the gallery corners and the gallery chairs.
Yes, the micro installation.
Explain the gallery chair, because that's just a brilliant piece of industrial design.
So even if you don't have room for a massive art center, you can drop in a gallery chair. It's a single, highly curated seat with its own built-in acoustics, its own specific lighting, and a micro-exhibition attached to it. It ensures that the cultural identity infiltrates even the absolute smallest, tightest pockets of the transit environment.
You are never more than a few feet away from an authored experience.
Exactly.
Okay, let's zoom out for section 5, connecting the ecosystem. Because aviation doesn't exist in a vacuum. You don't just go to an airport and stay there. Well, hopefully not.
No, hopefully not. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, we look at chapter 08 of the landing page. It introduces the bridges concept.
The bridges concept.
Yes, because the journey doesn't end when you get off the plane. The bridges system proposes linking this highly curated aviation network directly into the rest of the luxury travel ecosystem.
So connecting the airport to tourism, hospitality, marinas, real estate.
Even space travel. The text mentions space.
I want you listening to just picture this unified journey. You walk into a curated art terminal. You board an authored smart glass aircraft. You land, and you immediately transition into a culturally aligned luxury hotel or maybe a super yacht in a networked marina.
There's no friction. The entire sequence of your travel speaks with one continuous aesthetic and symbolic voice. You never have that jarring moment where you go from a beautiful five-star hotel into a depressing, chaotic airport terminal.
It's totally seamless. But how do you enforce this globally? Because that requires incredible discipline across hundreds of different companies.
That is where Chapter 07B comes in. It introduces the metrics for success, the Art Index and the Art Prize.
Like a Michelin guide for aviation.
Exactly like that. The Art Index is a proposed global registry. It will rigorously evaluate and document the curation of art in aviation spaces. It sets a benchmark for excellence.
So if an airport slacks off and lets their cultural programming degrade, they drop on the index, and they lose that high net worth traffic.
Precisely. And the Art Prize acts as the carrot. It celebrates the absolute best, most visionary integration of these concepts. And all of this connects to the broader global rolling prize AD Art Architecture Design mentioned in Constellation 70.
Which proves this isn't just an abstract academic theory. This is a mature system. And it is actively led by Alexandros Mimoglou and Maria Papafili. Their expertise here is what elevates this from a neat concept into a deployable strategy.
Right. They aren't just dreaming, they're strategizing.
And their pitch to global aviation leaders is brilliantly simple. The text mentions they are just asking for a 20-minute strategic briefing.
Give us 20 minutes to show you how to change your identity from a generic service provider into a global cultural brand. It's a powerful pitch.
It really is.
Yeah.
So let's synthesize all of this. We are standing at the threshold of a totally new era. An era where transit ceases to be a functional, stressful burden and instead becomes a globally connected, immersive cultural stage.
And in an age where we all have massive information overload and chronic travel fatigue, intention and meaning are the ultimate luxuries, functional logistics are the bare minimum now.
So here's our call to action for you listening. The very next time you step into an airport or the next time you walk down a jet bridge into an airplane, look closely at your surroundings. Ask yourself, are you just standing inside a machine built for moving bodies? Or are you in a psychological landscape?
Are you being processed or are you being moved?
Exactly. Demand more from the spaces between where you are and where you are going.
And I'll leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought to mull over. We've spent centuries making our destinations beautiful, our cities, our hotels, our museums. But if this vision comes to pass, if our transit environments, the spaces between where we live and where we are going, become the most beautifully curated, technologically advanced, and culturally rich spaces we encounter, will the journey itself eventually become more significant to our human experience than the actual destination? Are we curating our way back into being a nomadic species? 2 to 4 seconds of silence.